Using the twin forces of science and magic, I have managed to deepen the winter that holds Eternia frozen and trance-like. Once again, we're talking Masters of the Universe UK Comics. Hit it. It was the 1980s. Larry Hama helped develop the G.I. Joe heroes. Lou Scheimer helped create Brave Star. Ted Wolfe helped launch Thundercats. And He-Man played Santa Claus on Eternia to save it from eternal winter. I'm your host, Jerry D, with another episode of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, and fads. If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, we got it covered. Now, joining me are two Totally Rad Christmas all-stars. My first guest, you'll know from Tis the Podcast. It's Thom Crow. Thom, how's it going?
Hi, Jerry Davila. It's going well. How are you?
I'm wonderful, man. I really am. It's good to see you. It's been too long. I feel like it's been forever.
It has. I'm glad to be back.
Right on. My next guest is the host of the Bodacious Lost Christmas podcast. It's Jeff Lofton. Jeff, how's it going?
Absolutely wonderful, Jerry, except we are almost on the surface of the sun in Texas. So,
I mean, yeah, it's definitely, and I've seen that meme, I'm sure you guys have, where it's from Mario and it's got the sun. It says that level that where the sun's trying to kill you, and that's Texas.
Yes.
I mean, it really is.
Yes,
like people, you have no idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
So, okay.
I don't want to rub it in, but I was able to walk outside for a ridiculous amount of time today, and it was pleasant.
That's a brag for sure. Yeah.
I did have to fly halfway across the country to get that, but
that's fair.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty hot up there in Oklahoma as well, isn't it?
Actually we had another the other day. We got rain in the morning, and our high was only like 78.
Oh, that's awesome.
On Friday.
Ooh.
Yeah. We had a cold front, and it was like 100 instead of 106. So
yeah, the heat index was like 103.
I know.
It was pleasant. It was really nice.
It was ridiculous.
Anthony and I were walking around Central Park today, and it was like 86.
Man, I wish. Like, that's what it's going to be like in late October, early November. And yeah, I can't wait.
Why do we make the decision to live in this part of the country? I just don't understand.
I think it's just because I've always lived here. And so it's like,
same.
That's what you do. You live in Texas. So I don't know. But okay, before we dive into it, Jeff, you just did I think it was your last season, right? You did a whole series on Santas and like the origin of Santa. Did you include He-Man like as part of the Eternian Santa? I'm just curious.
I did not, but that gives me much to think about for cartoon Santas from fantasy worlds. So
it's like
much
a whole
to consider. Yes.
Yeah, you got to branch out.
It's true.
Yeah, we're going to talk He-Man tonight. Now, before we do that, I want to get into my brand new segment. It's called Hit Me with the Toaster. So this is where I'm going to ask you guys some questions. I want you to hit me with the very first answer you can think of. Okay, don't think too hard about it. Just whatever pops up on the top of your head. So first question, Skeletor is Scrooge. Which Eternians would be the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future?
Man, I'm going to say present is Man-at-Arms.
All right.
And I would say future is, what's his name? The space travel guy. I'm drawing a blank from the comics. Zodak, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And then I guess past would be the sorceress or Tila. And if we're going to the comic books, they're the same character, so it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. It depends on which continuity we're talking about.
That's right. Yeah.
What do you think, Thom?
For past, I'm going to go with Tila.
Okay.
Present, I'm going to go with Queen Marlena, and it's probably just because she's always in green, like the original. Like imagine
that's okay. Yeah, we'll take it.
Oh, and future, that's a tough one because honestly, if I were to cast, I would have Skeletor as
he would be the one. Yeah.
Oh,
I feel like Evil Lynn would be a good future. like Skeletor somehow is dead and she's taken over his evil warriors. I don't know. That's
You're creeping
She
into
does- she does have-
Revelation, the Master of the Universe Revelation.
yeah,
when you do that.
exactly. Yeah. I don't know. That was a hard one. I'm sorry I sprung it on you. Here's an easy one though. Okay, so which cat would you rather spend Christmas with, Garfield or Cringer?
Cringer.
So, yeah, I agree. I'm not a huge Garfield person.
I can talk to Cringer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Garfield just wants to take and take and take from me.
And you're gonna be making like a bunch of Christmas lasagnas.
Right? And not getting to eat any of them.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. What a waste.
And he bullies Odie. So I mean, I'm not all about that. Is that yeah? So I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna pass. Give me Cringer, the scared one.
You'll get some good puddles at least.
That's right.
I'm gonna have to go back and say Hordak as the Ghost of Christmas Future.
Okay, that's fair.
That's a good one. That's a good one too.
Yeah. I'm changing. Sorry.
No worries. No worries. All right. Last one. You're going to Adam and Adora's birthday / Christmas party. What party food do you bring?
Swedish meatballs.
Okay.
I think like 7-layer dip. I think that's just every party needs it, so why not?
And they've never heard of it in Eternia.
I know,
right?
yeah.
So...
Haven't. Or like little Smokies. Those gross hot dogs that are just in barbecue sauce.
Pigs in a blanket. Yeah.
I like it.
All right. I'm into it. That's just a way for our listeners to get to know y'all a little bit better.
Do either of you watch Animal Control?
I haven't yet. I've heard it. I'd love it. And I just haven't.
They have this whole long drawn out scene where there's a pig running and they're all trying to catch it. And they finally wrap it in a blanket. And they're like, you did this whole thing just so you could say pigs in a blanket. He's like, absolutely.
Nice.
I mean, if that's your job, that's like #goals, right? I mean,
yeah. They love puns.
You need to memify everything. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, goodness. Okay. So tonight we actually are going to be talking about He-Man.
He-Man. He-Man. He-Man. He-Man.
Okay, before we dive into this particular issue and some of these others that I want to get into, what is your experience, your history with He-Man? Like, what do you remember about it most? Why don't we start with you, Jeff?
So born in the mid-'80s, I grew up with He-Man and reruns of He-Man, the Funimation cartoon. As I became a teenager, I found out there was history before the very interesting cartoon. And I still have a lot of my figures, and I have a ton of the comics, and I absolutely love He-Man. He's my favorite 80s. That and Brave Star are like 1A, 1B for 80s characters for me. So
Right on.
Star's a lot deeper cut, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brave Star's cool. I like Brave Star.
Yeah.
What about you, Tom?
I mentioned this before, so I won't beleaguer it, but I grew up with He-Man as well, being an 80s child. And He-Man was so near and dear to me that when I got a cat, I named her She-Ra, and then learned she was a he, and so He-Man. And he lived up to his name. He put my grandfather and great-grandmother in the hospital.
Oh, geez. That's sorry to hear that, but that is a vicious cat.
Yeah. Be careful with new pets.
Right.
I'm actually right there with you guys because He-Man, I'm sitting about a foot away from my old Castle Grayskull, and
Nice.
my He-Man toys are in a box down there. But He-Man was one of my favorites, and if you don't have this encyclopedia here, then you're totally missing out. And it's a whole series of hardcover books. There's the Toys of Masters of the Universe, which is super cool. Oops, there goes my phone. There's the He-Man and She-Ra, a complete guide to the animated series as well. There's the mini comics one that is also awesome. That and I'm missing two. I'm missing the art and the comic strip one is. And so I'm hoping that I can get those this Christmas. And there's a new one coming out also. Oh, snap. That's awesome. A He-Man lunchbox and thermos.
Not the original?
The original metal ones. Yep. Rusted and wonderful. Love it.
That's amazing.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah. Love He-Man. We'll forever love He-Man.
There's something about He-Man. It's we talked about it, Tom, you and I, when you were on it. It was, the chance for kids to embrace control and power. And of course, we went into the whole backstory, so we don't have to go into it too much again. But essentially, they did some market research. They found kids were saying the word power quite a bit, and so they developed this toy line around that. And it really is. I mean, I connected with it a lot. It was like my chance to become something more. And superheroes were huge to me at the time. But with He-Man, it was, I mean, he didn't really fight. He used his mind a lot more than his muscles. There was this cool mix of science and magic. I mean, it just was next level for me as a kid. And I just remember loving it so much that we had to tape all of the series on old Betamax tapes. We didn't even have a VHS. We had Betamax. I mean, they don't play anymore, but I remember just loving it that much. I was like, Dad, you got to record these.
Yeah, He-Man is science fantasy to me. Like he is Conan for kids. I absolutely love it. It's it just it just has like the trademarks of like what kids didn't have but wanted. Like you guys mentioned, it's got all the power, the intelligence, the cool characters with crazy weird names and abilities. I mean,
although you could tell as the line went on, the names got worse and worse. It's
they
like
ran
they
out
didn't
of
try.
Ideas.
They didn't quite try as hard. Snout Spout,
Right.
I mean, that compared to like Man at Arms, that's just not quite the same level there.
Not at all. Yeah.
No, not at all.
But I did like how it wasn't just, I mean, at first it was just He-Man and Skeletor, but then there were other factions that came along. So it was almost like these tribes against each other. You had Hordak and the evil Horde. Later on, we had the Snake Man. And then when they introduced She-Ra, I thought her cartoon was really well written. And as much as I love He-Man and I love the cartoons, they're going back now, they don't quite hold up as well as I think the She-Ra cartoons do. I think they had kind of streamlined their process and edited down some of the writing better for the She-Ra series than they did for He-Man.
Yeah, I agree. I think She-Ra and the connection to Princess Amethyst from the DC Comics is pretty straightforward. And I think they had a lot of world to build on. And they learned a lot from the He-Man series too, which is why there's so many like crossovers and there's so many shared characters. I agree though, the She-Ra cartoon is probably holds up better.
Yeah, it totally does. Well, and Tom, if I recall, didn't you like She-Ra better than the He-Man?
I did.
Yeah. I get it. I do. I've gone back and watched a few with my daughter and she, I mean, it definitely holds up more.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a cool premise as well. It's like this big rebellion against this oppressive regime, essentially. They're like freedom fighters. So you can't go wrong with the story about freedom fighters. I mean, you probably could, looking at you, Sonic, but
you could.
But you rarely do. I'll say that.
It's easier to cheer for an underdog, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like He-Man is still a prince, right? I mean, like you go back to it in the cartoon, he still lives in like the palace and he has Castle Grayskull. He has 2 castles. I mean, how hard is his life really? You're a prince who's super rich. Oh, and you got all these magic powers. Oh yeah, and your parents never told you your twin sister was stolen and just taken away, but your life's good.
How long have we been twins? And how do we tell each other apart?
Yeah. Which is always an odd choice. It is so totally a retcon that
it's great.
Unbelievable, because there's no way Marlena and Randor would do that to Adam, but of course they do in the show. So it is what it is. Now, I remember we were talking about in preparation for this, you were talking about He-Man and the Masters of the Multiverse in that comic.
Yes.
And this whole He-Man thing really is kind of a multiverse. I know that's the popular thing, but they were doing it back in the 80s, like right around when DC was doing it, making it popular. Because we have the original toy line, we have the Filmation cartoon, we have this UK comics that we're going to talk about, and that's set in its own little world. There was also some German and Brazilian comics as well that have their own mythologies. And later on, the German was adapted into some of the UK comics as well. And we'll get into that. But, then you had the DC comics. You had Dark Horse, I think, is doing it now. It really is a ton of different iterations. You think about the movie and Dolph Lundgren that we usually don't speak of, but for some reason, I think it's freaking awesome, even though it's terrible.
Oh, it's so bad.
It's so bad, but I love it.
It is peak 80s.
But I
It is
know
like
it's bad.
peak 1980s. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
Well,
same.
there's something you know you're going to get when you mention, oh, by the way, Dolph Lundgren, right?
Well,
Yep.
and I know he had to learn his lines phonetically. I think he was still learning English at the time.
Yeah.
And they weren't even going to use his voice. He had like 3 chances to do the lines, and if it didn't work out, they were going to dub him. But of course, Canon Films being Canon Films, they ran out of money, and so they just went with what they had. Yeah, it's such a bummer because apparently the last fight between He-Man and Skeletor was like epic. They had actually staged this whole thing, and when they ran out of money, they literally were like on that last day just doing what they could to make it work. They shut down the lights, they reworked the whole thing. It was a stunt man. It wasn't even Frank Langella anymore, and so it's it's kind of a bummer, but
I need to rewatch it. I haven't seen that in a while.
I love Canon. It's like every time that Canon logo pops on a screen, it's like, old friend, I've missed you.
Oh,
It's so bad.
misallocation of funds, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of that.
They have great first half of movies. That's because then they run out of
That is
budget
true.
for the second half, and
That
it's pretty much indefinite. Yeah,
It's always great setup. Yeah.
exactly.
Totally rad. Christmas should do a He-Man movie watch party.
Oh, I'd be into that.
Real time.
I'd totally
I'd
be into that.
I'm here for it.
Yeah. Bonus episode, Patreon episode or something. We'll get it done.
Yeah. As awful as he is, I will not turn down a Dolph Lundgren movie.
Yeah.
For real. Yeah. I agree. Okay. Before we jump in, what's your favorite He-Man character? Or who I should say is your favorite He-Man character?
She-Ra.
Right on.
Orko for me, I think. I love
Orko.
Orko. I know
Okay.
from the cartoon. I always liked the magician.
He was fun in the cartoon.
The unnecessary magician, but
Yeah,
I loved him nonetheless. He has his moments, but yeah, it's mostly comedic relief.
I mean, yeah, it's a kid's show and it was Filmation, so I get it. So of course I want to say He-Man, but like I think the toy was so cool. It was Cyclone. You know, he had the blue skin. You could like
Yeah.
spin him and he would swirl around. And so
Yeah.
he didn't get a lot of play. I think he came out in maybe 1, maybe 3, but I think it's 1 episode. And I just thought he was super cool. He just had a great look and a cool feature. And so I think that's definitely up there, even though, nobody knows. If you say Masters of the Universe Cyclone, nobody knows what you're talking about. So
Yeah, that's fair.
No, nobody has a clue.
yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the UK comics because they're their own animal. London Editions magazine, they actually wanted to license out Transformers property. They lost it to Marvel UK. And so they thought, well, what else is big? And so they went with Masters of the Universe. And they brought on Brian Clark, who was like an art student. He was like fresh out of college. He really didn't know anything. He interviewed a couple of times, created a story on the spot, and he was hired. And so he was their editor, and he created this character, Skrullos, who's kind of the like the Watcher, essentially, like in Marvel Comics, the Watcher, and he knows all the lore and all the mythology, and he answers the questions that people write in, and that kind of person who just oversees it all. And from there, they would create these little stories. And it really is like an anthology kind of series. It's like 2 or 3 stories packed into one comic, which has its moments, but at the same time, it's like some of these I wish they could have expanded a little bit better.
Like today, like this episode.
yeah. It's a very short episode, so we're gonna just talk He-Man for a long time. Yeah, it's something else. I don't know what they were doing.
Is it common for them to just take away the color?
Yes, so that actually is common for UK comics in general, but especially London editions in specific. And so there would be a few pages of color and then just black and white. And then again, towards the end, maybe one story in full color and then another story that was black and white. Or if there was only 2, like if they had expanded it a bit, one would be in color mostly, and then the other one be all black and white. But it's also very jarring to us Americans who are used to monthly comics that are completely colorized, from the big publishers. And I'm not talking like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles here. I'm talking Marvel, DC, of course, Image and Malibu and some of those, but it really is kind of off-putting. Like after 40 years of reading comics all in color, it's definitely hard to get through.
It was hard for me to finish this one. I'm not going to lie. It was hard.
Yeah.
In comics, you're already outside of the comic, right?
Right.
You're not in it the way you are a book. But when you remove the color and add the creepy winking, it's just
yeah.
There's a lot of creepy winking.
Can't connect as much.
Yeah, it's the hard transition, right? From from some panels in color, and then suddenly they're like, you're fine. You don't need this anymore.
We're going to save some money. You're not going to care. It's all right. Don't worry too much about it.
Castle Grayskull just doesn't look good in black and white, man.
It really needs to have that dark green, stony texture, and it's hard to convey that.
I agree.
Yeah. So they actually had Masters of the Universe actually had 2 Christmas comics, and then She-Ra had a Christmas comic as well. And I was able to get Nathan Kennedy from the Fans of Power podcast on, and we covered one of the comics of Masters of the Universe, and we covered the She-Ra one. I want to kind of quickly go over those before we dive into the main Christmas story here, because that's the one I want to spend most of our time on, even though it's really short. And so it's going to be like a quick episode, I feel. But so let's see. Let's talk about the She-Ra one first, because I think that's easier. So there's an ancient scroll that Skeletor finds She-Ra is carrying, and so he and Hordak and a bunch of other guys, they just kind of do their thing and try to take the scroll. It turns out in the end, and this is really awful, but it turns out it was actually the recipe to a big plum pudding from the master toy maker, or the magical toy maker of the world, which of course is kind of an allusion to Santa Claus.
I'm Santa Claus.
Right, and I'm the Tooth Fairy.
Now, this is set in the same reality as the story that we're going to be talking about, that doesn't talk about a magical toy maker. Essentially, in the story we're talking about, He-Man and Man-at-Arms are Santa Claus.
Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas, young lady.
Merry Christmas, brother.
Oh, you knew it was me all the time, didn't you?
So it's like, I don't understand how it's all related. Who is this guy, this magical toy maker? What does he have to do with He-Man? Is this, I don't know. It's just a big, complicated thing that I don't quite get.
Well, so you're confusing Etherian mythos and Eternian mythos. That's the big
Well,
problem
maybe that's what it is.
Right? See, so you got
Maybe that's what it is.
They have a mythical toy maker on Etheria, and on Eternia, it's Father Christmas character, I guess. That is really just He-Man in disguise.
But see, that's the hard part, because here, Hordak seems to primarily, and the Fright Zone seems to be located on Eternia in a lot of the He-Man comics. And then once they started She-Ra and the cartoon came out, they kind of transported Hordak's main base of operations to Etheria. And it's a very confusing kind of thing for a kid. I mean, nowadays you get, okay, well, that's his main base. He has a layer here, no big deal. But also there's like, in that She-Ra comic, there's just a weird portal that just happens to be in between that nobody knows about. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, depending on which Skeletor it is, I mean, there's an interdimensional demon, or, He-Man's uncle, one or both.
That's right, yeah.
Who knows? Yeah, it's fine, yeah.
Tomato, yeah, it's
we'll
all
pick
the same.
one. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
A little from column A, a little from column B.
And so in the other Christmas comic that I covered, it was about the Joy Bringers, which seems to be a phrase that I guess Brian Clark really relied on, because that's also the title of the story that we're really going to be talking in depth about. But the Joy Bringers are a race. They sprinkle their magic joy dust, and they kind of lighten the whole wintertide. And Hordak tries to steal this magic dust and use it to create a cannon. And it turns out somehow the bags got switched, and all he ends up doing is creating like a big chocolate cannonball. It's really weird. And then Orko makes some chocolate soldiers come to life. So, as one does.
Yeah. I mean, that's the natural response, I would imagine.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah.
But tonight, the story that I really want to focus on, because this is the origin story of the Eternian Father Christmas, as we're talking about. It is from Masters of the Universe number 20. I do like the cover. It's not very Christmassy, but it's just kind of a cool little cover with the big orb that says Merry Christmas Readers that Orko's holding, like a big magic ball of energy or something. And it's got the whole heroic warriors around it. I just thought that was a cool little design. But I mean, nothing super impressive. One thing I did discover is I could never find out who illustrated a lot of these until later on. And it's because they hired it out to a Spanish art firm called Selecciones Ilustradas. So no one really knows who worked there at the time. It was just they send in their script, they would get these pages back. And they never designed any characters. They never asked for input. It wasn't like, here's the idea I have for this character. What do you think? Can we tweak it? Nowadays there's like a long back and forth before these things get approved. Back then it was literally just, here's a script. Okay, here's your drawing.
Here's $12. Go color this for me.
Right.
Or don't.
No, yeah. Color this panel.
Color a third of it, right? It's like, yeah.
Well, I like on the cover the Spend Christmas on Eternia call out. But my favorite thing is on that orb is fun. It looks like a bauble or something. But in the bottom, you Skeletor and Hordak. Bah! We hate Christmas.
Well, and I always thought the way they drew Hordak in these UK comics was just weird.
Yeah,
I get it. They're kind of basing it off. Some of it was off of the toy. Some of it was off of just concept art. But he just always looks funny whenever we see him in these pictures. It doesn't hold up at all.
Especially when he and Skeletor are snuggling. It really looks like Skeletor's like resting on Hordak's shoulder and for comfort. It's weird.
Well, we know that Skeletor is a softie for Christmas. So there you have it. All right, so let's go ahead and get in. So we have the first page. It's a splash cover. It says welcome. Excuse me, it's not a splash. It's the title page. It says welcome young warriors and talks about season's greetings to all my warriors. I hope that you enjoy the special Christmas issue featuring a thrilling and heartwarming seasonal adventure. I don't really know if it's that thrilling, but okay. If you do like this issue, look out for the She-Ra one that we talked about, and then have a good holiday. Don't forget to write and let me know what you think of this issue, and so on and so on. And then there's like a little thing about Orko the Magician. One thing that I thought was cool is that they always include like facts, just unusual facts, and that was kind of their, I don't know, I guess educational tie-in. So Strange Universe, they talk about the Arctic Circle and things of that nature. So sure, I'm good with that.
And a really weird explanation of binary coding with computers.
That they can't even count to two.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
that's not how it works, but okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Why not? I guess if you're trying to explain it to kids, but let's teach them incorrectly, it just doesn't seem like a good way to go.
No.
I mean, they do it with all sorts of other things. So, I figured they were like, it's fine. Let's just hand wave it.
That's right.
The ones who want to know will figure it out anyway.
I'd love to see their explanation for like quantum physics, like let's talk Schrodinger's cat and let's see how they explain it. But okay, so the story is entitled Joybringer. I'll nutshell it really quickly. Hordak has created like this spell somehow that has caused a fear that he calls it the ice fear to really get everyone's heart and their emotions, just make them feel down. And it really has been winter for quite a long time. And it's up to He-Man to stop him. That's the nutshell version of it, which he does. Spoiler alert.
Always winter and never Christmas. No?
Is that from Narnia? The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe?
It is. It's a song by Switchfoot that they did for Narnia. And it's a really good song.
Oh, okay.
My joke would have gone over a lot better if y'all knew that reference.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't.
Also, I'm kind of disappointed in both of you that you don't.
Well, the movie was not good to me, so sorry. It's not on my list. Yeah.
He prefers the 88 version from the BBC.
Yes.
I'm excited about. Okay,
Terrible.
we won't get into that. I'm looking forward to the new series.
Yeah. I mean,
It can't be worse.
I don't know if you've seen that that BBC version.
I shouldn't have spoken.
That lion
have spoken that into existence.
It's
It's
rough.
bad. Yeah.
It's rough.
Yeah.
Fine, Jeff. We're not editing.
No,
very,
it's fine.
Very little editing tonight. Yeah, no, but okay.
You guys edit? What is editing?
Yeah, for real. I just splice in a few things here and there. Now, I wish I'd started that like my first 2 seasons. So now I'm like going back to my old episodes and re-editing them. And I set up a dangerous precedent when I started that the 3rd season.
Yeah, you did.
It just doesn't. I go back and listen to the old ones and I just can't. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. We get a nice picture of Castle Grayskull. And it says, every winter time, Eternia is gripped by ice and snow. This year, the conditions seem to be worse than ever. The ice harder, the cold more chilling, and the snow deeper. I do like the way Castle Grayskull looks in the snow, though.
You mean not snowy at all?
Yeah.
Well, I assume it's some sort of magical protection, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I can find a way out of this. It's magic.
It's there.
Yeah.
I'm also curious. I would love to get stills of every location that Castle Grayskull supposedly is.
That's right.
Because here it's like on an isolated hill. Sometimes it's on an empty plain. Sometimes it's like there's like trees around. I would love. Is this like a traveling Castle Grayskull, kind of like in the new
like Krull
TV show? Yeah, exactly.
The Iron Fortress in
right.
Krull. It just every day it's in a new spot. I kind of like that idea actually, but yeah. I mean, here, and it's like a nice grassy hill too. It's
yeah,
looks pretty temperate. Honestly, it looks kind of nice.
it's Texas,
right?
All around us, and then that's Texas right there.
It's cold. It can't be Texas.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Well, the cold missed us. So
that's right.
I like Hordak just sitting back in his chair, like, "Hello, children,"
with his legs crossed. Yeah. Well, apparently. One of the things, as they got into the later issues, one of the things that these Spanish artists would try to do is throw in more like innuendo and like sexual poses, and then they constantly had to edit them out because Mattel would just veto it. So I find Hordak's position here just rather odd. But of course, like any great villain, he talks to himself and he monologues the whole thing. And he says, and I love this here because it's just so ridiculous, "It is working. I have gripped all of Eternia in the ice sphere." So the ice sphere, I guess, is what he's calling this endless winter that sucks the joy out of people. Hence the title Joy Bringer, because that's what He-Man's going to do later on.
What?
Yeah.
Do you know what, Jerry? I think that all villains are connected by some sort of weird social network where these are just blogs and vlogs where they like speak them and they go into like the ecosystem of villains and they kind of brag to each other about what's going on. So they're not really monologuing, right?
I like this.
There's just a secret social network that none of us have access to until we become supervillains.
Until we become supervillains? Like, I'm tempted to become a supervillain just so I could read their blogs.
It's invite only, right? So
I mean,
you have to fail a certain number of times to take something over in order to get access.
I mean, I think I'd be a terrible villain because, like, I try my best to be a good guy. So I think I'd be a terrible villain. So I'm pretty sure I could fail at villainy really easily. So maybe I could make the list. I don't know.
Maybe so.
I don't know.
What do you think, Tom? I don't know. Tom.
I don't know. I think it seems like these villains make it really easy to fail at conquering a superhero. I feel like that's something I could look up to.
I mean, unless you're like Scott from Austin Powers and you're just like, let me go get a gun. We'll shoot him right now. I mean, I think.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I think that's it.
No, we're going to tie him up and leave. That's what we're going to do.
That's right. So Hordak is wandering his halls, of course, and again, speaking his blog entry into existence. And we get a council. And I like that they include lesser-known characters. So we have the Sorceress, Man-at-Arms, He-Man, and Moss-Man, out of all people. And I guess Moss-Man's there just because of his connection, like Swamp Thing, his connection to the green. In this case, it's his connection to the Eternian climate. Because I don't really know what else Moss-Man brings to the table other than that.
Insulation?
Maybe.
He's insulated, right? He's covered in moss. I think he's
and there's a lot of moss thrives in cold environments. That's why reindeer are known to eat so much moss.
There you go. See?
I'm not sure this is a bad thing for Moss Man.
So he's like, hey, it's finally Like,
My
this
time
is
to
Mossman's
shine.
time to shine.
Hey guys, that's no fair.
So they're having like a little powwow. And of course, the sorceress confirms, yes, everything's magical. And so they decide they're going to move on. And again, we get the lesser known characters. We have now Mechanic, which I always liked Mechanic, although he does kind of have a dumb power.
It's very specific.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. It's like it works for recon and that's kind of about it.
Yeah, he's a lesser Elastic Man or Plastic Man, but it's fine. It's what it is.
And so, but we get Cyclone as well, just floating in the background there. So they're off to the Fright Zone, which, okay, I guess the sorceress figured out that it was Hordak. How do you tell like Hordak's magic science combo from like Skeletor's magic / sometimes science?
You're asking too many questions, Jerry.
Well, I'm curious.
You're poking holes.
I want to know where, how they know this. I mean, we just have to take the sources and word for it, I guess. But I don't know. I'm intrigued. But
so in Castle Grayskull, there's like countless doors, right?
There are.
Maybe she peeked through because she has control over what you can see from each one of those. So maybe she just peeked through and was like, all right, where's this crap coming from? And it was like, oh, it's Hordak, that guy. All right,
Yeah.
man.
Again.
Go take care of it, please. Yeah.
I mean, I'll take any explanation, so that works for me. Just at this point, because I really feel like that's actually kind of a cool storyline. Remember, we think of like Evil Seed in that Filmation episode when he's like taking over all of Eternia with his plants, and then they have to use ice to freeze them or whatever. But Evil Seed's just taking it all over, and no one can do anything, and they have to team up. I mean, I would like to see something like that. That could have been a cool just the whole issue just on this one thing. But of course, there are restrictions and there are kind of demands that it has to be an anthology series. I mean, I get it, but I think this could have been a really cool story that just we didn't get too much depth in. So of course they make their way to the Fright Zone and they're intercepted by Hordak and a few members of his evil horde, Leech and who's that, Grizzlor. And the fight ensues. So I guess this is the thrilling part that they were talking about in the in the title.
We're being liberal with that.
Well, it was the last color page, right?
It is.
So that makes it thrilling.
That's right.
If your second to last color panel should not just be He-Man slicing through ice. That's a really anticlimactic moment to me.
I agree. I definitely agree. Although he does have an interesting dive at Hordak there.
That's a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, they just go like full on assault, and Hordak seems to try to trap him with like these giant icicles. I don't know. I think Hordak would have been better served if he had turned his arm into a cannon and tried to shoot him.
Or all the ice spears. So he threw spears of ice, but instead of throwing them at He-Man, he like made a circle around him with them. Which I guess is a cool show of force, I suppose.
Yeah. Why impale the hero?
It's a weird
when you
flex,
can just trap
right?
him?
Yeah.
Weird flex.
Yeah.
And I really hate that we go through this, Hordak's losing, and by the way, they're just going to teleport to escape, right? Like
That's like classic He-Man villain, though, right? I feel like that's Skeletor's move.
That's the dungeon master who didn't have an escape plan is like, oh, he teleports away. You can't beat the big bad evil guy, right?
Oh man, now I want to like play a He-Man, D&D game. I mean, there's got to be some modules out there somewhere, right?
There was so I think from there's a couple. The people who made the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game in the 80s had a He-Man module. So
oh, okay, right on.
Yeah. So,
and that's why we have you on here so you can lead this for us.
I will run a tabletop game for anyone who wants to play He-Man.
I'm in. Let's do it. Then Hordak, of course, begs for mercy, but also at the same time he's like, I'm good. Like, you can't hurt me at all. So peace. And he splits. And He-Man's like, no, wait, stay. Like, don't go. Like, get rid of this thing. And Hordak's just, he's gone. But we get to like a very pensive He-Man. It's like hard cut to he's back at Grayskull or the palace or somewhere. Grayskull, excuse me. And he's just imagining Hordak and what Hordak is thinking and saying and how he's done this evil thing. I mean, it's just, I like those kind of character building moments. It's just such a weird transition, and it doesn't really play out the way they want it to play out. Of course, as if I was reading this as a 6-year-old, I would have loved the heck out of it, though. So I do have to say that.
I still think you'd be confused when randomly we just have a hard break and it's like, our attention, how's it word? Our attention shifts to a small cabin in the forest of Eternia. Like, why?
Right.
This is like a terrible segue.
This is like that Joss Whedon thing where he's always got to throw in someone on the ground, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. Cut to Russian family, you know, that has nothing to do with anything, but we need the Flash to save them. So
I like Nik-Las. I just wish we'd had a better, softer intro to him.
Yeah.
So I think what confused me about this is, so He-Man and friends were going to the Hordak's base, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they got intercepted along the way, and then Hordak teleported away. Well, where did Hordak go? Right where He-Man was going in the first place, but He-Man gave up because he got in a fight, and he went home.
Unless he transported to like Etheria, I have no idea.
Yeah, so I'm confused. Does He-Man have like a cap on number of fights per day? Like, is this like he's limited to like one?
He's hit his quota.
And he's like, man. Well, this was my one fight, and he teleported away. So that's right. Yeah, he used up all his stamina.
He needs to find his Enduro mushroom.
He-Man, quick! Avian is under attack. I can't. Like, I just fought Hordak. Like, you're gonna have to wait till tomorrow, guy.
All his spell slots are gone, and he's gotta go.
We'll have to adjourn and come back.
That's right.
Come back in a week.
Anyway, I just found that weird, and then so it jumps like, okay, He-Man, sure, Hordak teleports away, and then he's sitting there thinking, or reminiscing about his time with Hordak wrestling in the snow, and then suddenly it jumps to a cabin. It's like, wait, we got to leave He-Man's thoughts real quick and get somewhere else.
Well, and I love, but the cabin is owned by a man, like a poor farmer, Eternian farmer named Nik-Las. Nik-Las. Oh, get it, Nik-Las.
That's right.
Nik-Las, just in case you're a little confused. I mean, that's a little on the nose, I think.
A little?
Yeah, just a tad.
Okay.
But so he and his daughter, of course, this freeze, they're farmers, so this freeze has been really messing with them. And his daughter is mute because I don't know if it's because his wife passed away, her mom passed away, but apparently she hasn't spoken. So he's doing everything he can to find food and feed her and keep them warm, but it's so cold. And all this time, by the way, her name is Mouse. Which is a strange name, like Mouse. Okay, I mean, like I get it if that's like a pet name, but no, it's Mouse. Yeah, good job, Brian Clark. But yeah, so she can actually she can't speak, but she does think. She's a smart girl, and she just talks about how she doesn't think winter will ever go, and she can understand her dad just fine. And they attempt to at least, bring some sort of emotional engagement in here. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, the entire planet freezing to death wasn't emotional enough. So let's focus on one small family.
Let's bring the macro into the micro.
This.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I zoom in. Joss Whedon thing, right? Yeah, you're gonna zoom in.
Joss Whedon just ripped off Brian Clark everywhere.
You heard it here first.
I'm gonna spread that around. Yeah. So Mouse starts crying because she's very sad for the situation, and Nik-Las realizes that he's got to find some sort of food and or some way to keep them warm. So he tucks her in, and off he goes. Meanwhile, He-Man all this time has been contemplating by himself everything that Hordak has done, and suddenly he's surprised. He just, this revelation occurs to him that I know how we can get rid of this ice sphere. And I don't know where he came up with this or the logic that brought him to this moment, but his realization is that, maybe men's hearts are frozen and they're cold and there's nothing we can do, but what about the children?
Think of the children. Won't somebody please think of the children?
So quickly, he and Man-at-Arms decide to, I don't know if they just find these toys, they buy these dolls, they make these dolls. I don't know how they do it in one night either, but apparently they just come upon a ton of dolls. Maybe Orko magicked them, or the sorceress.
It was Prince Adam's private collection. I think that's the most obvious answer, right?
I mean, that's got to be right. That's that's the only thing.
You know, and you got to give him shout outs. This girl, you know, the dad is doing everything he can just to keep her warm, like trying to stoke this fire. As a woodcutter, he doesn't have enough wood to keep her warm. Right. So what are we going to do? We're going to help her stay warm. We're going to give him food, right? We're going to supply. Nope. We're going to two grown men sneaking into this little girl's bedroom.
Don't say it like that.
It's creepy.
It is creepy. Yeah, don't say it like that.
They're smiling at her. Hey, little girl, I got a present for you.
Yeah, it'll bring warmth to her heart, was the quote. Well, rather than warmth to her body or food for her body, here's warmth for your heart.
That's the only way we're gonna get rid of this ice fear, man.
So when your body freezes, your heart will still be warm.
But I love this panel of them with like teddy bears and dolls, just like trying to shove them into the sack. It's
right. It's
weird. What, Adam's like dribbling a ball or something?
Yeah,
he does. Yeah, he's got a basketball or something. What looks like a basketball. But in the background, are those elves or?
I think they're teddy bears and dolls.
Are they just larger dolls? Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe it was foreshadowing a future enemy. Who knows? I don't know.
I can't tell you. But yeah, so they decide they're going to leave toys for all the kids of Eternia, and what they end up doing is breaking into Nik-Las's house and leaving a doll for Mouse, who wakes up the very next morning and is overjoyed. But of course, she wakes up just at the exact moment that her dad, Nik-Las, comes in and is confused. He's like, look, there's food. Well, so I guess they do bring him food because...
Oh, they did bring food. They did bring food.
Yeah. Come and look, there's food, and we have fuel for our fire. It's a miracle. And he's like, wait, what do you got there? Is that a doll? Where'd you get that? And she says her very first words. Oh, and it's, Father, kiss Mouse. Let's say that a little faster. Father Christmas. Father Christmas. Father Christmas. Whoa! Yeah, this is the most ridiculous thing ever, but it's the origin story for Father Christmas on Eternia.
You know, of the many Christmas gift giver character background stories I've ever heard, this one ranks at the very bottom. This is the worst. And I had a whole season of these.
You did a whole season of these.
There's some bad ones. This is bad.
Father Kiss going to be number one.
This is in the power rankings of turds. This is number one.
I feel like, I don't know. This just could have gone so much better. Like it's literally a land where magic and science exists, and this is what they come up with: Father Kiss Mouse.
Yep.
Okay. Well, and commenting on that, I do want to talk about this. So, this was an interview that Brian Clark did with Aiden Cross, and let's see, it says, we had that really strange one, another Thom Sweetman one. You can't really have Christmas on Eternia, same as you can't have earthquakes, because it's not Earth. But we wanted to mark Christmas, so Thom Sweetman did this really charming story about this character called Mouse. At the end, we had this thing with her saying, Father, kiss Mouse, which gives rise to the idea of a character called Father Christmas. That was a Thom Sweetman story, and it took us ages to get the right payoff. And that's what I wanted to emphasize, that he thinks this whole thing paid off, and I don't think it did. But
wow.
Yeah.
He stood by it, huh?
Yeah.
It was a winner.
Yeah, and that was back in 2017, so all those years later, he enjoyed it.
You know what? Be proud of your stuff, right? At least he owns it, right?
He owns it. That's true. Yeah. Well, I don't know. He kind of blames it on this Thom Sweetman guy. So.
Oh man, it's like a backhanded compliment too.
That's right. Yeah.
We worked really hard for this.
We had to get this payoff. It took us forever.
We're so punny.
I do feel like this was a really big missed opportunity for another Master of the Universe character to come in. I don't know. Maybe just me. Yeah, I mean, it's ripe with opportunity.
Yeah.
Instead, they have I mean, don't get me wrong, girl speaking her first words after not freezing to death at night is probably a good thing, but.
So just in case anybody out there is wondering, Totally Rad Christmas stands strongly opposed to children freezing to death.
That's
right. True. That is true. But we only if they speak their first words.
That's
so,
right.
Like
otherwise, it's open. Open season.
Yeah. But anyway, so we get in a panel of everything melting, and and then it cuts to He-Man and Man-at-Arms, and they're talking about how good they feel breaking into kids' houses and giving them stuff. So,
with a weird wink.
Yeah.
Uncomfortable wink.
It's oof. And then we get Castle Grayskull, which again looks like the
different terrain
has shifted. Yeah. But I have to read this last bit just because it's so ridiculous. Who can say how joy enters the hearts of children? Tonight, the young of Eternia have found a cause to believe in. You know what happened to destroy the ice sphere, but wherever you go, whatever you do, you must never tell Hordak.
Aww.
Huh.
I don't know. I gotta say, I think He-Man and She-Ra, a Christmas special, did it way better.
Agreed.
Way better.
Way better.
Yeah.
And it was fully color.
That just bumps it up a few points automatically.
Yeah, after 20 minutes, it didn't switch to black and white. Where they forgot to pay
Can you imagine
people who fill the color in, right?
If they had tried like cutting costs and just halfway through, like when She-Ra's being attacked by like the monstroids, it's black and white all of a sudden.
That's right. Or they went down to 2 voice actors and that was it. Like or I guess just one. Just leave it to one because it probably was around 2 voice actors.
It was, yeah. It was like Lou Scheimer and and Erica and then He-Man. Yeah, and then the other ones in here don't have anything to do with Christmas. It's Child's Play where He-Man and like gonna get his brain switched and a kid tries to stop him, and no big deal, whatever. We don't even have to cover that. I mean, really the draw was the Christmas Story, and even then it's not really a draw. But yeah, it was an odd little piece here. I really like the He-Man and She-Ra Christmas special. I know, again, it's not really good. The song that they sing in there, which I think is called Christmas in Eternia, is the official name that Erica Scheimer wrote.
Love and caring, peaceful bliss, joys of sharing, happiness, Christmas spirits in the air, Eternia and everywhere. Don't you feel it? Feel that you're a part. Christmas season is a time of your heart.
It's not a great song.
You know.
I'd put it on a playlist because I'm nerdy like that, but I would probably skip it every time it came on. You know?
Unless it's around people who you want to look at and say, what are you listening to?
That's right. Which, sometimes that's my kids. But most of the time it's not. I don't know. But I think that one's so much better. The story, even though it's still not a fantastic story, it's more cohesive than we got here. We got I got a lot of Christmas feels from Skeletor's turn, and I know it's only temporary, like they even say Skeletor's only once a year, whatever, but still, I got more out of that than I did with this nice attempt at sentimentality and where the kid doesn't freeze to death.
Rather than the He-Man B&E.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean,
He-Man B&E. That's like a good punk band name.
It is.
But yeah, no, I love He-Man, and I could talk He-Man forever, and I know we could talk He-Man forever as a collective here, but I do gotta wonder, what would you guys say would be your happiest memory or moment with He-Man? And it can be anything He-Man, because there's really not a lot for this story or any of these other comic stories here. So I'm good with just any He-Man happiest memory.
Man, I'm just going to tell you right now that those He-Man action figures were the best as a kid. They were the best action figures that I had.
Yep.
They were just sturdy. I could beat the crud out of them together, and they showed no sign of wear. I love those. And then my other memory is, of course, having a cat named He-Man.
Right.
That's fair. Mine would be Christmas 91. I got Castle Grayskull. And so that was like
nice.
That was that was it, because it went with the action figures that I had. And whenever I would go garage sale shopping with my mom or my grandma, I would pick up any He-Man figures, because everybody had like some they were getting rid of, especially in the late 80s, early 90s. So the action figures were great, because you could make up your own super cohesive storylines that weren't hand wavy at all.
Well,
right?
I mean, when G.I. Joe and like the Thundercats came in, I don't really know how cohesive my storylines got, but
they were intricate,
fun.
Jerry. Don't sell yourself short.
I Secret Wars did. Everybody came in,
Speaking of Thundercats, slightly off topic, have you read the crossover He-Man Thundercats comics?
I haven't, no.
Okay.
I know about them, but I never have.
Okay.
Are they any
good? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're fun.
I like fun.
So, yeah, check it out.
I feel like it would be typical, hero meets hero battle, and then we're friends and we got to stop the greater good or the greater evil together.
Yeah, it's more like a villain swap, but yeah.
Is it? Oh, okay. Well, all right.
Yeah, it's fun.
Well, I guess that's better than standard.
It's good to read once. Once you read it once, you won't go back to it, but it's fun.
Kind of like the Masters of the Multiverse.
Yep, I'm solid at this point. I don't need to go back.
Same. I read it when it came out, and I haven't gone back to it.
No.
Have you read that one, Thom?
I haven't.
Okay. Well, I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's kind of like Jet Li's The One. I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
Okay.
That's kind of where I'll end it for. Yeah.
kind of Highlander-ish, kind of.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a little bit of that in there as well. So, but I mean, yeah, that's great. And I'm actually kind of right there with you. I said this last time. It remains the same. My most favorite memory was when I got Castle Grayskull in Christmas of '84, I believe it was. And it was awesome. I mean, it was Castle Grayskull, and I had a bunch of the figures. Thunder Punch He-Man was another one of my favorites. And you put the cap in the back, and you'd pop the cap. They released because they're doing the Origins figures now, which are like just redesigned, but essentially it's all the old figures and a few surprises here and there. And it doesn't have the cap thing. He's got the big bulky backpack, but it's just a backpack he's wearing.
There's
like nothing. It's not. And I can still smell that smell of the gun, little gunpowder, essentially.
That's right.
I miss that. So,
are you also telling us that Christmas has just been downhill ever since then too? Nothing's been as good as Christmas morning.
Well, I did get Voltron in '85, so that was pretty awesome too.
All right, that's fair.
But then, yeah. No,
I mean, giant robots are hard to beat.
Giant robots are pretty hard to beat. Yeah. But Castle Grayskull was fantastic. So I mean, I can't. It was like the pinnacle.
So cool.
The pinnacle of '80s toys, right there.
Agree.
Yeah. But now we come to my favorite part of the show, which is a little segment I like to call "Gag Me with the Spoon." So this is where we do our best impression of our least favorite part of this comic. Voices are encouraged, but since it's nothing really to copy, let's get creative with it and see where we can go. As a guest, I'll let you go first. Just kind of set up the scene and see what terrible dialogue we got.
I don't need to set up the scene, but I am going to have a face and everything to go with it for you. Father, kiss mouse.
I'm going to have nightmares of this.
I feel like I need to put that I'm going to cut that and make it my ringtone. And anytime you text or call me,
you're going to have to. Yeah, this has become a not safe for work podcast at this point, Jerry.
Yeah, totally rad after dark.
That's right.
Oh my goodness, sorry.
I would say mine is He-Man. Okay, so I'm setting it up. He-Man has just sliced through some ice spears and tackled Hordak and wrestled in the snow, and then Hordak magically teleports away, and He-Man says, "Stay, Hordak. You must remove the ice spear. Joy must be returned to Eternia. And I'm not going to chase you any further." because this is it for me today. This is it.
I met my quota. I can't.
This is it.
My stamina's gone. My stamina.
I have one encounter a day, apparently.
I think so. Yeah. Let's roll a perception check for that. See where Hordak went.
Right.
Yeah. So mine's actually from that same panel, or just about. And so same thing. Actually, I think anyway. Either way, He-Man and Hordak, they come face to face, and He-Man says, "What evil! You have created a sadness across the land that even I may never lift." So it's okay, sure. I don't know. It's so stilted and clunky.
So cheesy.
Yeah,
so cheesy.
It really is very cheesy. But what's not cheesy is the G.I. Joe taught us knowing is half the battle. What do you guys think is the other half?
I would say the other half is breaking and entering and dropping off toys in children's bedrooms will magically cure the environment. Right.
Like that.
That's the other half of the battle.
Yeah.
Knowing half of the battle, the other half is not freezing to death.
That's a huge portion of the battle there. Yeah. And I'm kind of along there with you. So if knowing's half the battle, the other half is getting rid of the Christmas blues by playing Santa.
Sure.
There you go.
I like it.
Guys, it's been fun. It's been a terrible comic, but it's been fun talking to you about this terrible comic.
Oh, most definitely.
Tell me about like your shows. What else? What do you want to plug? What do you got coming up?
I'll jump in. So this season I've got a new website coming out. More Lost Years of Santa Claus stories for those that enjoy it. And maybe a few guests on this season. I don't know. I'll be real.
Nice.
I sometimes just like to hear myself talk, so I don't always get guests on the show. But yeah. So the Lost Christmas podcast. Please check us out. Obviously, I'm on pretty much all the podcast networks.
Right.
So you can find it pretty much anywhere.
Are you going to be including Father Christmas in your?
I'm probably going to do at
traditions?
some point a power ranking of worst Christmas origin stories.
Okay,
this will be there. Yeah.
As long as Jerry's aware that I give you permission to use my audio.
I'll cut it and I'll send it to you. Yeah.
Yep. That's going to be my my what was it, the ringback tones that they used to have back in the day when someone called you, it played instead of a ring tone.
Yeah.
So that's going to be it, Thom.
Right on. Right on.
I've got a couple podcasts you can check out. You've all heard Tis the podcast that's determined to keep the Christmas spirit alive 365 days a year. Mm-hmm. Check us out at linktree.com/Tis the podcast or wherever you get your podcasts. And once every 2 weeks, we pick up where Jerry left off, and a high school friend of mine and I discuss the music that made our high school years, the awesome 90s music. So it's a retrospective 90s music review podcast.
Yeah, very cool.
Love it.
So I think in all of the 90s, my favorite was probably the Gin Blossoms. I think that's kind of where I land on the 90s music. Okay. Gin Blossoms and Metallica were like my two favorites, as weird as that is, but that's kind of
it's a weird combo, but I'll take it.
I mean, I like music, so it is what it is. But did you say that song was by Switchfoot?
I was wrong. It's Reliant K.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I apologize. I was misspoken. It's from the Reliant K Let It Snow, Let It Reindeer album.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
I think I have that album. Maybe.
I sent y'all a link to the song now and recommend the whole album.
Right on.
Awesome.
I'll check it out.
I'll definitely check it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Right on. Guys, well, again, let me say thank you. This was fun. And I needed it today.
Thanks, Jerry.
And I'll end it with, if I can give the children something to believe in, then the ice sphere will melt. So check us out on our social media pages, Facebook and Instagram at Totally Rad Christmas, Twitter at Rad Christmas, Mastodon at Totally Rad Christmas at mastodon.world, Blue Sky at radchristmas.bsky.social, or our Facebook group, Totally Rad Christmas Mall and Arcade, where you can make your voice known to us as well. We post anything and everything 80s or Christmas related. And if you're feeling like the young of Eternia, finding a cause to believe in, leave us a review on iTunes. It helps us reach more people and spread some rad holiday cheer. Now, don't forget to check out our merch shop on tpublic.com and our super dope website, totallyradchristmas.com, courtesy of this gentleman, the Tis a Podcast elf, Tom Crow. Thank you again for that, by the way. Season's greetings to all my warriors. Later, dudes.